Please start. Please start. Please start. Time to get this tank back in. Okay, so that's the fuel tank fitted and reconnected. The hoses are connected on the top and the wiring's passed through. I did have to just replace a couple of those bolts there that had sheared off that I'd previously drilled and tapped. They just hold the handbrake cable there. So I might be jumping the gun here. But if the vehicle does run without an exhaust on, it's obviously going to upset the neighbours. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refit the exhaust and get the car back down on the ground. I'm just going to just recheck the oil level. I know it had some oil in there before. I'm just going to double check that. And also I did notice that there's a distinct lack of coolant in here. This could be a bit of an issue. I mean, with any luck, it's just like an external leak. Yeah, well, I'm hoping it's not an internal leak because that's obviously an engine issue, and we'll have to start stripping that down. But let's just hope for the best here. I mean, there's a chance that there is a little bit of fluid in there, but hey, let's just see how we get on. I'm just gonna stick my head underneath, see if there's any leaks. I think we're okay. Just gonna turn the key a couple of times to prime that new pump in the tank. Oh great, it's making a noise. Interestingly enough, I've just noticed something while I was just doing my last check for the startup. You can see this. This is the throttle cable, and it's actually been disconnected for some reason. And also the intercooler here is missing its bolts. But up here on the scuttle, there is an assortment of bolts. So we can assume that somebody's already been in there and had a little bit of a fiddle. I don't know if this is good or bad news, so I'm just going to go ahead and reconnect the throttle here, and I'm also going to put the bolts back in there. Okay, so at this point, there's nothing really left for me to do except for turn the key and cross my fingers and see what happens. Okay, so it's kind of good news. The car was trying to start. I have actually stopped to try and work out what's wrong with it, but I don't know if you can see this or not. We've got quite a big fuel leak down the back of the engine. It is kind of spraying fuel everywhere, so I'm going to try and determine where that's coming from first. It could be one of the reasons why it's not idling. So I've aborted trying to start this due to the fuel leak that's underneath this manifold here. I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from. I did pressurize the system and try and have a look. It's kind of spraying out everywhere underneath there. That is where the high pressure fuel rail is, so it's possibly something to do with that. The only way to actually find out though is to strip this top bit down here and actually physically look, prime it, see if I can see any fuel leaking. Hopefully it's something obvious. So I've taken the intercooler off and I primed the system with the key, and it did look like there was a couple of leaks coming from this pipe here, both sides actually as it goes. So I've just chopped the ends off and made them a little bit shorter and put some Jubilee clips on there for the time being, just to see if I can. I will actually replace this pipe at some point, but just to see if this is actually going to work, stop the leak. Incidentally, that's the return pipe to the tank off the fuel rail. So now the fuel leak's fixed. I did try cranking it and not much is happening, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's getting fuel. I did check the spark plugs, they are dry, which means that the injectors aren't actually working. There is fuel going to the fuel rail, so the next thing I'm going to have to do is check the pulse on the injectors and actually check the injectors, because they could just be shot. So I'm going to go ahead, take the intercooler back off, have a look, see if I can get the fuel rail off, check the wiring and everything else, and then hopefully it's not bad news. Morning guys, hope you're doing okay. Bit of an update on the Project Mira. So yesterday it did try spluttering into life, and then it seemed to just be turning over. I had a feeling it was something to do with the injection system. So what I did is I checked to make sure that there's fuel coming from the filter to the actual fuel rail. There was fuel, and it just seemed that the injectors weren't operating correctly. I then took off the the intercooler, and I went ahead and I tested the solenoids on the injectors. They seemed to be okay. They were clicking, and also I did check to see that there was a feed coming from the actual wiring from the ECU into the injectors, and it was getting a pulse. So I couldn't see that there was any reason why they weren't working. I reconnected everything and it started to work. This could be good and bad news. There could be a problem there with a break in a wire, or just lazy components as this vehicle hasn't ran for a long time. But anyway, I did put it back together and it did try to splutter back into life, but there seems to be another problem where it's actually sprung a leak from the fuel tank. And I think what's actually happening here is the return fuel line from the injector rail that goes back to the tank is blocked, and what it's doing is pressurizing the hoses and they're leaking on the joins. This is good and bad news. I mean, I'm pretty certain the car will run after I've sorted this out, but it means that I potentially have a block in the fuel tank. So I may have to end up taking the fuel tank out. I'm going to see if I can take a hose off and maybe see if I can clear the obstruction. Otherwise, tank's got to come back out again. Okay, so we're underneath the car here, and we got the two hoses in and out. It's very difficult to kind of see here. There you go, there's a bit of fuel that's leaked out from underneath there. Yeah, it's pretty tricky for me to even get to these hoses the way they are, so I'm going to have to take the tank back out, unfortunately. Okay, with the exhaust out of the way, just going to go ahead, drain the tank. Okay, this is the tank out. Pretty crude method, but I'm just going to blow down this return pipe to see if it's blocked. Yeah, doesn't taste very nice, and it's definitely blocked. So with the fuel tank out, sender removed, and also the pump removed, I was able to actually look at this blocked breather. It comes in here, goes under the inside of the tank here, and it drops down just inside the swirl pot. You can see here what I've done is I've just bent it up just so I can actually have a look at it, and yeah, I did try cleaning it out with a bit of wire, and it seems to be blocked around here. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm actually going to cut the pipe and hopefully be able to get closer to the blockage to remove it, or cut the blockage out, and then bend the pipe back down into the swirl pot. It shouldn't make too much of a difference if it's a little bit shorter, as long as it points down without making too much turbulence as the pump sits in there. Hey, let's see what happens. Okay, so that seemed to work. It hasn't affected the pipe too much. We'll go ahead, fit it all back in, and try again. With the fuel tank, I put the sender back in and the fuel pump back in again, and to clear out the blocked return pipe, which is now working. And I do know what you're thinking, why didn't I check it? Well, they do say assumption is the mother of all fudge-ups, and hey, live and learn, don't you? Exhaust is back on. Next we're going to put the fuel back in the car and get it back off the axle stands, and then it's the moment of truth again. We're going to turn the key, damn it's hot, turn the key and fingers crossed it should be running. See what happens. I'm just going to turn the key a couple of times just to prime that fuel system. You can hear the pump trying to work. Oh, interestingly enough, that fuel sender is actually working, which is great. I'm just going to check underneath the car, see if we've got any leaks. Oh, so far so good. Okay, we're going to go try and start the car now. So fingers crossed. Feels a bit like a deja vu, but here we go. Oh, it's alive. It is actually running. Okay, super happy with that. It is running. It's actually sounding pretty good. Got a weird smell coming out the exhaust, but then I don't know when was the last time this has actually started. So far so good. I'm going to let it run up to operating temperature, make sure the fan cuts in and out, look for any coolant leaks or any leaks. Yeah, really happy, really happy. So I'm just sat in the car waiting for it to reach operating temperature, and I have noticed something here that even with the clutch depressed, I'm unable to get any gears. The clutch is actually seized, so we're going to have to do something. Okay, a little bit of a trick there with this stuck clutch. Just turn the engine off, put it in reverse gear, started the engine, and that's it. It's actually unseized the clutch, and now I can actually select gears. Brilliant. So the car is coming up to operating temperature now, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a rev. Gotta love that. Okay, that's the radiator fan coming on and off. Yep, I'm as surprised as you are. Really appreciate you tuning in again. See you next time. Bye.